When he was a toddler and you took your kids into Chicago to get clothes, Paul, you couldn't trust that he would let you hold his hand because he'd wiggle. You'd walk down Michigan Avenue where if he got loose, he's gone. And he knew enough to keep going. That guy had an independent streak.
It was around those dinner tables, particularly with my dad sort of presiding, where we got a lot of lessons drilled into us. Be part of the solution, not the problem. Be decisive. Pause and absorb.
Once he got to Miami, he ends up having to work for Senator Caston. And it kind of cements his direction. And his goal was to work behind the scenes.
And in '92, there needed to be an outside vehicle that channeled the policy ideas that Dad was championing his whole career.
We just were impressed with him, how he presented, his commitment, his knowledge, his obvious depth on the issues, his command of the issues. We saw the talent even at that time.
When he first expressed an interest in running for Congress, he was this young, brash guy, and Chambers and I and others said, yeah, right.
You can do what? That's not in your ballpark at all. What are you talking about? We don't know beans about anything like that.
She said, I can do that job, but I can do it better.
We were doing everything by a shoestring. I never knew what house we'd be sleeping in, and we'd pick up our baby and go.
Paul just wowed people with his knowledge of the issues.
Social Security and the rating of the trust fund, those were positions he took early on.
There was a question whether he could actually win.
It wasn't obvious to the political class in Washington, and it wasn't obvious to the press.
And away he went.
Even back then, when he was just a rank and file member of Congress, that Paul was pushing us to go further, to tackle the hard issues.
Taxes and Social Security and Medicare. He was really trying to be that conservative voice on those issues.
Today, I am introducing a roadmap for America's future to reform the nation's health care entitlements, Social Security, and the federal tax code.
Back in May of 2008, Paul was there presenting the first attempt at a Republican budget that would get to balance by also touching that third rail of politics.
Every Republican operative and consultant had advised their clients, don't touch this third rail.
Hearing so many Republicans that this was a mistake.
It wasn't because of political power, it was really just idea power.
Fred Barnes calls your roadmap the most important proposal in domestic policy since Reagan's supply-side economics.
Paul's work on Medicare reform was the first time I'd seen Republicans run for office as a national party on a big idea.
For him, this was about the future, an obligation that he felt he had for making sure that the rising generation has the same opportunities that his own generation has had, especially people with fewer advantages in American life.
Countries that don't take care of their entitlements and have runaway domestic spending, they wind up having austerity. The problem with austerity is not that it hurts rich people, it's that it hurts poor people. Paul Ryan makes the case that you have to do the right thing. You have to be fiscally conservative, because if you don't, you're gonna hurt the poor. And it's not right to hurt the poor. You can't do that. If you believe in the radical equality of human dignity, you need these policies.
I was impressed with the fact that he wasn't concerned about the politics, he was concerned about the policy.
It's an honor to announce my running mate and the next Vice President of the United States, Paul Ryan.
In the wake of the 2012 campaign, you could really see in his own thinking a kind of self-critical way of assessing what was wrong. And so those travels around the country for him were really a way of connecting the ideas to real people's circumstances at a human level.
Paul had a genuine interest in knowing, how do you take a guy who has been stuck for 20, 30, 40 years, rise out of that condition? He went across the country to get the answer to that question.
These kids are not incorrigible. Transformation is possible, but you got to get urban specialists, individuals who know how to manage that terrain to do it. It showed me the reality of who he was.
Not detach from the common man.
Instead of judging the efforts by prescribed strategies, he began to think about how strategies could be shifted to accommodate, embrace, and ultimately support the strategies that he saw with his eyes working.
The Honorable Paul D. Ryan of the state of Wisconsin is duly elected as Speaker of the House.
The speaker didn't want to be speaker. He loved where he was.
The giving up of a gavel that he had longed for.
Even as he had aspirations for Ways and Means chair, it was not as a stepping stone to greatness, it was a position to advance policies.
He's picked up the mantle of Jack Kemp.
The way that we look out for the people at the periphery of our society is really the measure of our moral worth.
He put really big issues on the table for the country to reckon with.
Not based upon the politics, but based upon the merit of the actual choice.
Paul Ryan stood for what he believed.
He's written a wonderful story for himself in politics. But as for this chapter, it's been an honorable chapter. So he's got a lot of things that he's going to do before his story is finally written.